Welcome in to the Toyota Lounge, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. Welcome to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. This is Meghan. This is Eric. Rudo, out of commission today. Out of commission, but we will manage without him. We will have a fun time. We'll talk a little bit at the start about the Avs' new signing yesterday. Not a major one, but still current events with the Avalanche is always nice to talk about in the summertime. And then we'll go right into the top 10 Avalanche, most memorable Avalanche games of all time that we came up with our list, and that's up against all the other sports in town right now with the DNVR of the top 25. And of course, we're biased, would have our 10 in the first 10, but that's not how it's going to play out. That's not how it's been playing out. So, all right, well, let's get right into it, Meghan. Why don't I give you the floor on Kevin? He's from my hometown, just for the record. He's from Blainville, Quebec. I'm from Rosemary. You're talking about Parker and Castle Pines. You know what I mean? So it's like same area of the world. So Mandolese, or however you say it, but I'm sure there's some French in them. It has to be French in them. From that neck of the woods, they don't speak English. So go ahead. I'll give you the floor on what your thoughts are on the signing yesterday of Kevin.
Well, I feel like we were waiting for this shoe to drop because we knew that the pipeline for the immediate in Loveland, Utah, needed to be replenished in some way. And I think what's intriguing about this option is how young he is and the fringe quality of straddling between the ECHL and the AHL. He bills a lot like Trent Miner and his path so far to getting to the American League and hopefully having a full-time job in Loveland. And so I'm interested to see if they do even more with this position, because I'll tell you off the top, it does feel it's a very depth move. I don't feel like this is the solution for the third string option for the Avs, at least just because similar to an Annunen or a Miner, who Annunen, it took several years in the system before they earned enough trust to start giving him those looks. I just don't get the sense that this is a player then bringing him in newly and as such a young goaltender who's still figuring out the pro league, the minor pro leagues. I don't get the sense then that's what he's destined for in Colorado. However, Trent Miner does still need somebody to battle for that net with in Loveland, and so it does feel like this is to drive up some of that competition and see. And either way, they also needed to replenish some of the goaltending with the Grizzlies as well in Utah. So it feels like it's geared towards that just because similar to Annunen's record and Miner's record even, he's still figuring some things out. But I do love the idea of a young goaltender with some upside and just replenishing that pipeline in the immediate, even after this draft where they took all the goalies.
That's right. I agree with you. We were on the pod yesterday, and Rudo, kind of broke it. Didn't break it, but talked about it, about the immediate signing. My thoughts are a little bit like yours. I'm not going to deviate from it. I do believe, I don't know, I got mixed feelings about it in the sense that if I'm the management, am I comfortable going into the season with one of those guys as being the number 3, meaning like whoever, wins the bat? I'm not comfortable. That's me. Again, because I've seen disaster strike before, so I'm just a little more cautious. But so you're right. I do believe that maybe there's more coming. Maybe there is a waiver wire pickup. I don't know. But at least right now, what it does, though, what I like is it brings competition. My fault here. God, I'm on the computer and not on my phone. My apologies there. it brings a little bit of competition, which I like. I go back to my American League days as a player. I'll tell you one thing. In the minors in St. John's, Newfoundland, we had Damien Rhodes and Felix Potvin, two guys that ended up being starters in the National Hockey League. So I loved it. They wanted it. They were fighting for it. And, at the NHL level at the time was Grant Fuhr. That was there not too long in Toronto, but he was there. And then, the net was for them to get. And whoever was going to get the net in the American League, then, which Felix ended up getting. And he's the one that ended up getting called up and going to play at the National Hockey League level. But I just feel, and again, no disrespect to Trent here, Minor or Kevin. I don't think that they're where Felix Potvin was at that time at the American League level, meaning like Cat was going to become an all-star in the NHL. I can't say that about any one of those two yet, but then again, we haven't seen them play that much. Now, sounds like Kevin had a little bit of time in the ECHL last year. Was it a conditioning stint? Might have been. I didn't do a deep dive into it. So he did, but he did, play 20-something games in the American League, 30 games, whatever it was, and then played a good playoffs. And it sounds like, it kind of starting to make a name for himself a little bit there. So I like that. We've talked about Trent here for many times here the last few weeks, right? We all know where he stands. He knows where he stands, and it's time for him to get some starts in the American League level and get the net and fight for the net. It's exactly what you said. I agree with you. The competition will be healthy if it stays this way. You're talking about obviously Georgiev and then Eustace. So you're talking about two guys there, two nets at the NHL level. Now you got Trent and Kevin there for, the American League level. And then you have, I don't want to forget about him, the Michigan kid there, Barzewski.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I apologize to him.
Yeah, Barzewski. Jake. We'll call him Jake because we call Kevin, Trent, and Jake. So
JKB.
Jake, Jakey B. Can't forget about him. He had a great career in Michigan. So on an American League deal, so probably would be the guy as it stands today. Again, I hate to do this in July, but I'm saying on a board, let them fight for it. But what might be the guy that would be in Utah, right? You know what I mean? That would be the emergency on the board. I'm talking about, again, things change. We all know that. I don't want to peg guys, but we're just for numbers purposes today, just kind of two at the American League level, and then one in Utah. Again, that's why there's training camp. That's why there's preseason games. That's why there's all that stuff. As it stands, there is a little bit of a replenishment, from the Avs management in the sense that there's boxes that are filled. Now, again, I'll say it, and I think you feel the same way, Meghan. I think Rudo will feel the same way too. Like there might be more coming. You know what I mean? That's just my gut feeling. Just because you're talking about Stanley Cup championship aspiration team, and you want to protect yourself. I mean, again, maybe these guys will emerge as being those guys, right? I don't know. They need to play, or maybe that's the plan. Let's make them play, and we'll see come Christmas or Thanksgiving. Do we need more help there? Maybe that's what Kevin McDonald and the crew are doing. K-Mac is doing. You know what I mean? And who knows, right? But at least there's a little bit of breathing room in there. They can breathe a little bit. It's July. Might get dormant for a little bit right now. On the signing front, but it's a nice depth move. It's a nice, things that needed to be done. We'll see what happens.
With Tynan and Meghan McDonald, they're just going to be too busy scoring goals to worry about anybody needing to not allow goals to be scored. I'm kidding, but I do think that they're not done. To your point, the serious point you made just before, I think last year was a cautionary tale with Arvid Holm. This was a goaltender that had American League experience coming into it, and I think they thought that he was going to more seriously battle for a tandem spot in Loveland, and he struggled to earn that trust. And so with Jakey B coming out of college and playing in one game and having a little bit of a rough debut because Trent Minor was injured at the end of last year, I think they just want to have options. And so I'm excited to see what this latest goaltender brings to that competition pool. I won't write Jakey B out of the equation, and I'm also excited for Trent Minor to hopefully be inspired by that competition in net.
And I think, I've always said that, and I'll say it again. Again, maybe as a player you don't think that way sometimes, but when there's competition, it just brings the best out of everybody. I'm a firm believer in that, and like I said, when you're in it, you can either thrive or fold right under the pressure, and if you're folding in those little competitions like that, then you're probably not meant to be the guy, right? So that's, which is okay, but it's fun. And the worst part of those things is guys like that tend to become like great friends too. You know what I mean? You've heard the horror stories where they absolutely hate each other, and then you hear the Swayman and Olmark, where he babysits his kids and they hug it out on national TV every game, and you know what I mean, which is, and you pull for one of, but you're fighting for it. You're fighting for it. Olmark will tell you like, hey, he wanted the net, and Swayman wanted the net, and but you pull for each other, and that's good. That's healthy. I like that. Again, I don't know all three, so I don't know. I don't know if they know each other, but they'll get to know plenty of each other. And I think that Schneekloth right now and the rest of the coaching crew down there is going to be excited if that's how it is. Like we said, if there's nothing more to become of the goaltending situation on it, then fine. Let them fight for it. Again, you like it, I like it. I'll speak for Rudo. We all know he likes it. That's an ambulance right there. So you know, maybe Yaya drop something.
Yeah, yeah, drop.
Let's yeah. Let's jump into our topic, which is our top 10 most memorable Avalanche games, maybe in the history of the franchise. And it's funny because now you're starting to get into the a lot of years, right? I mean, you're talking about 95, 96. So what are we at, 29 this year? 29 years, right? That would, I mean, 95, 96, 24. Man, we're close. We're close to the 30th, right? I mean, that would be next year.
I will never do
Holy
math
crap.
on there.
I mean,
I won't fact
U.S.
check it.
U.S. Maybe Canadian. It's like 36 years, but whatever. I think U.S. years. It's we're at 29, right? That is crazy. So you're dealing with what a fun exercise that to do those things. To get 10 games. Well, just jump right into it. We can go right away to the 2001 Game 7. Uh, you know, I'll speak to it. I'll give you the floor. But for me, that is, a, a very memorable one because I was there. Were you born, Megan? You were probably just, a young baby.
I was born, but I would not have had
No,
real time memory of this.
we won't go into my age. That's fine. But I was in the stands with my wife. It was awesome for me. Um, I love that game. I love that game. And, if you're talking about 20 some years later, now you're still seeing that moment. And, Ray Bork calls it Joe Sakic's best assist, right? I thought it was awesome the way, the whole thing unfolded. Again, this is a team that had won in 96 and they were so ripe, you know what I mean, to win and to keep going. They missed a few, and then they win it again in 2001. And I'll tell you one thing: it was memorable, it was awesome, and I was in the stands, and it was quite some fabulous to see.
And this is the 2001
Yeah,
game 7.
yeah, yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder too. I know this is a topic that you and the fellas have talked a lot about at length, comparing Avs 1.0 and Avs 2.0, but being able to defeat the defending Stanley Cup champion opposite them, are there similarities between both of these teams being able to take down a team kind of at the height of what they were trying to accomplish opposite them?
Absolutely. And I want to get into a little more. That's a great question. I want to get into a little more depth right after I touch here on UC Health. I just look at the clock and I'm like, oh my God, you talk hockey. We're talking about Eagle signings and it's so fun. And next thing you know, it's like, whoa, I got to get on top of my stuff here. But UC Health, we're so excited to launch the new partnership with friends at UC Health. UCL knows how important mental health is and encourage Coloradans to live their healthiest lives through statewide initiatives that include taking care of your mental health, and they want you to live like there is a tomorrow. UC Help loves sharing stories about their patients to help other Coloradans in their health journey. Former UC Health patient David Schlicht, a Colorado teenager who loves being active outdoors, is a prime example of someone taking care of their mental health, living like there is a tomorrow. David's path as an Olympic hopeful took a turn when he lost his leg after a ski training accident. With the help of UCL doctors, David decided to amputate his leg and was almost immediately able to get back to doing what he loves most, being active outdoors. He relies on the outdoors and on his family and friends to help him to stay mentally strong and positive. While there have been struggles, he stays. He says that overall, losing his leg has been a positive thing because he now gets to show people what they can do, even with a prosthetic leg. And that has given him much more purpose in life and has helped him become more confident in life as well. Take care of your mental health today so you can have a better tomorrow, like, David and company. So, if you want to learn more about David's story and see more inspiring patient stories from UC Health, you can head to uchealth.org/tomorrow to learn what it means to live like there is a tomorrow. We're also brought to you by Toyota. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA for generations. Toyota has built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Rudo should get one right now with his two dogs. He is getting too crowded right now with his sedan. He needs a truck. Whether you're conquering off road trails or hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you, like the all new 2024 Tacoma and the return of the iconic 2024 Land Cruiser. Was my first car in Colorado, actually, 1996 season. Great car. Toyota offers 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner. Toyota also currently offers more low and zero emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. There's 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, like like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trail, so you can explore the road less traveled without sacrificing smooth city rides in SUVs like the RAV4 and the Grand Highlander. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. Auto Nation Toyota Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East, which was my dealership back then, in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood, the official vehicle of the Colorado Avalanche and the official vehicle of DNVR. So I want to get back to your wonderful question of 2001, which is our first game that we're dissecting there. It was awesome because Jersey, just like Tampa, had won the year before. You had the great Marty Brodeur. You had the great Jacques. No, that's the year that actually Larry Robinson in 2000 had taken over from Jacques Lemaire. But they had Scott Stevens on D, and they had those guys. They were such a defensive-minded team, but they could score goals. People didn't realize that. They all thought that, oh, it's the trap, and these guys invented the trap. But they were a high-scoring team, and they were a good team. I'll tell you one thing. I remember their faces because, again, I felt I was not playing with the Avalanche anymore. I was not with the Rangers, but I was, obviously it's my family. So you go into playoffs and the city is a buzz, and it's so fun. Like 2 years ago, right? The city just goes absolutely bonkers for the final, and they obviously were down 3-2 in the series. And I'll tell you one thing. Game 5, it was 2-2 in Game 5. Jersey took it to the Avalanche, won it in Denver, and I remember like just waiting afterwards. Max wasn't born yet, so we were just, my wife and I, Jill, we were just sitting there and then just waiting for, maybe go out to eat with some I don't remember, some guys or even my parents or something. And everybody was down, and all the wives were down, management wives were down. I think I was in that room there, and they were like, "Oh God, down 3-2, got to go to Jersey." And I'll tell you one thing: what a game they played, Game 6 in New Jersey to come back for a home Game 7. Again, the Ray Bork factor, the whole year, and the year before, they were let's win one from Ray, right? Mission 16W, obviously the exit in East Rutherford was 16W as well, right, in New Jersey. So that's where the rink was, and they took the bus, and they're like, "Here you go. There's a sign. It's exit. 16W." And I'll tell you one thing. They played a great Game 7. It was awesome. It was magical in there. Alex Tanguay was absolutely electric. Joe was awesome. But to see the face on Ray and the whole building, nobody was leaving their seat. You got to remember, when you win on home ice, it is so amazing. I've never done it. I've only seen it, and that's the one time that I saw it live in the stands, and it was just so unbelievable. Nobody wanted to leave. It just cements like all the effort that you've gone through that season, and to beat a good team in Jersey, like you said, it's kind of like the 2022, Tampa. You're talking about being on the top of the mountain, literally, no pun intended, in Colorado, and seeing Ray. It was special. Ray still talks about it. I can tell you that. It's just like it's a moment that is forever grateful in his memories and a lot of hockey people's memories, especially as Colorado Avalanche. So I really like that game. Like I said, I was in the stands, so I'll vouch for that one any day.
And I know we have to move through the list, but I know another player that had his fingerprints in this championship and that series in particular. And we were talking about, like Cogliano and Francouz coming back to the Avs organization. What do you think it is about winning together like that makes a player like Heinote interesting to come and coach in the organization with behind the American Eagles? Sorry, the American League bench.
Okay, yeah.
So many years later.
Well, it's a crazy team that year. When you win, it just what is the sense? Like you walk together the rest of your life together, right? And it's true. It opens doors. People want winners. I said it the other day at free agency. People want to surround themselves with winner. I've always said that, and I'll say it again. You win the Stanley Cup as a player adds 3 to 4 years to your career. I am honest with anybody. Like it does. Cogliano, look, it did it again. Even at a later age, it added a couple more years. It just does. And if it's not with that team, it's with another team because people want winners and they want their players to be surrounded by winners. And on that edition of 01, you have Rob Blake, that's now the GM of the LA Kings. You got Chris Drury, that's GM of the New York Rangers. You got Joe Sakic, GM, president of the Avalanche. You have Heinote, that's now an assistant coach, obviously in the NHL. I mean, I don't have the list in front of me, but guys are, it makes you love hockey, makes you love the game so much that you never want to leave it. And that's why a lot of them are in management and they want to duplicate it, like Joe duplicated it as a player and then as management, which is awesome. You know what I mean? And they're all different. He'll tell you it was different. It's totally different from when you're playing. So it was crazy. It was fun. And, man, I've always said I should have been there, so that's another story. But I was never jealous. I was happy. It's my family, and then you're happy for your friends and stuff like that. But it's hard. It's hard when you see guys that have been traded, and you're like, oh God, like it's not a good feeling to see because you're like, God, I could have been there. You know what I mean? So anyway, we'll move on from that one, and but that was a good one. Then we can go on to the other one on the list, number 2, the '96. Game 4, Huey Krupp, good old the big dog, Huey Krupp. God bless him, love him. I was there for that one too. Again, playing for the LA Kings this time, not playing for the Avalanche or the New York Rangers. But I flew in from LA all the way to Florida on the red eye, and that game ended up going to like 4 overtime, whatever it was. It was 3 overtime. It was crazy, triple overtime. It was in the wee hours of the night. It was at the old Miami Arena. Huey Krupp, that I was telling you the story. They had moved at the draft in 1995. Actually, '94 draft. They had moved kind of like this year a little bit. They had moved back right to select a player a little later, and I do believe they had the fourth or fifth overall pick, and they moved down to like 8 or 9 to the Islanders. And how they ended up moving back was, Yui Krupp is what they were given to make that trade. So that's a little bit crazy that all of a sudden Yui breaks the original game at McNichols against the Detroit Red Wings. Yui Krupp tears his ACL, misses the entire season, and then comes back in the playoffs and scores that magical goal. So pretty crazy, pretty fun. Again, I can elaborate more about those games because I just happened to be in the building. And I'll tell you one thing, a quick story on this one. It was three overtimes, and all of a sudden, like I'm in the stands because my brother and I are there, and just supporting our family, our father, and I somebody tapped me on the shoulder, so they didn't know what to do anymore between during the intermissions. So I had to go do the French TVA, right? Because they really were running out of people to talk to, or talk in between periods. So
Oh,
so I went down. And after the second OT, I did the live TV there by the dressing rooms, and then I was like, I won't go back in my seat. I mean, someone's going to score, you know what I mean? So I watched the game in the video room there with Paul Fixture and Jean Martineau, and guys were dressed. Aaron Miller, like scratches were all dressed, right? Davey Hannon, Aaron Miller, Troy Murray. Anyway, my old man was there too. My dad was there, and then I was just kind of standing there. I'm like, it's fine. I'll just stand with these guys. And I think Scott Young hit the post, or Lynch hit the post, and my old man thought they had won. He started running down the hallway. Yeah, and he's screaming, and he's throwing his jacket. And then he took a left, and all of a sudden, he gets to the ice, and oh, the game's still playing. So he's like, oh my God, false alarm. So guys are dying. I mean, but the emotions, what I'm trying to say again, you're talking about, someone on management, and you're talking about the players. They were all like, those guys were sitting there. I do have a picture. I'll bring it in the office. Like, it's amazing. You can tell. It's just like and it's any moment, you could win the Stanley Cup. Like any shot, you can win the Stanley. You could feel it in that room. It was amazing to be part of something like this. Meaning, like, again, I'm just family. I'm not a player, but it was so fun to watch, and it helped me later on because you understand what it is like when you're trying to win. It's like, oh my God, that is crazy what you have to go through and everything. So all of a sudden, the big dog Yui Krupp scores. So it was phenomenal. Denver's first major championship, right? And then all the Bronco fans were mad, and all that stuff because the Avalanche were new to the city, and they're the ones that. And it was a caricature that you could see in the Denver Post, which I drew. I don't remember his last name. The guy was awesome. He used to make fun of my dad all the time, and so I have all those caricatures. Like I have like 15 of them. It's so good, so good. When I say make fun of them, with all the respect for it, is awesome. But there was one of Joe Sakic sleeping with the Stanley Cup, and then you can see John Elway in the window just peeking like that. It was one of the greatest pictures, you know what I mean? It was not to rub it in on obviously the Broncos, a phenomenal franchise. After that, they started winning championships as well. But it was funny. It was Denver's first championship, and then before we get into the next one, I'll tell you one thing. It was a long flight back. I did fly with the team, even though I was playing for a different team. I sat in the front row. I chartered back to Denver. It was in the wee hours of the night. Mike Keane was still in his gear. That's where Sean Podine got the idea in 2001. Mike Keane was still in his gear on the plane, without his skates. And it was gross, and his cigar and everything.
it was gross.
But I'll tell you one thing. They got to Denver that morning, and they needed their Shady Rays. You know what I mean? Because it
They
was
needed some
very
waters and some
sunny.
shady
They
rays.
did. They needed some Shady Rays. I mean, get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last, like Mike Keane needed in 1996. But our friend at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated five stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you are bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's colors as well. So your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. They will just replace it for free. It's outstanding. So if you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to Shady Rays and use the code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. So DNVR code for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades, rated 5 stars by, like I said, over 300,000 people. But to get back to the 96 one, yes, they got back to the wee hours of the night. And I'll tell you one thing, that parade, the Stanley Cup parade, was awesome. I ended up staying there, obviously. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never been in Denver in my life. It was crazy. It was fun. But those are great memories. So I'm glad those two, I don't know if 96, you definitely weren't born.
No, I definitely don't. But I think it's a good segue for our next topic in the list. Like the next couple of games will transition us to the current era of Avs hockey. And
absolutely.
I look at the next one is going to be us talking about the Darren Helm goal. And I wonder if, like, in the Florida series from the 96 Cup, if the Mike Keane game time goal in Game 3 had a similar feel to how excited you got for Darren Helm with this one ended the series. And so I could see there's definitely some difference. Like, it ended the series for St. Louis, that is. So I could see why there's elevated excitement around a guy like Darren Helm getting this goal in the final seconds. But I have to imagine there's some added bonus in that being the player that has a big moment. I just feel like you really rally around those types of guys because their big moments might not happen as frequently as Nathan MacKinnon in the playoffs or Joe Sakic in the playoffs. But when it's a Mike Keane or a Darren Helm, I feel like it gets you even more excited for the guy.
Oh, you're right. You're bang on. And is that number 4? Is that on the list there, number 4, Yaya? Is number 4 that one? Or do you got the graphic there? Oh, it's the hatred. Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. You were talking about the number 10,
Did we skip
right?
3?
No, we're going to 3. I'm sorry. Yeah, number 3. I gotcha.
Cool.
But yeah, that's more your era. Obviously, you were born for that one. That was a couple years ago.
Barely.
So.
I'm just a baby.
No, again, I think you're right. I think what it does, it cements the Avalanche 1.0 to have some tough years. You know what I mean? Some tough years, and then Avalanche 2.0, obviously solidifying that game there, that 2022 Game 6 in Tampa Bay. To see the joy and to see the guys like Eric Johnson that have been there through the tough years, Gabe, it goes back. It reminds me of '96. The Joe Sakics that have been there through the hell years of the Quebec Nordiques. I mean, people don't remember that because you guys were too young, but Quebec was finishing dead last every year in the National Hockey League, and Joe was there, and it was miserable, and so footy, and then guys like that all of a sudden they become Stanley Cup champions with that franchise is pretty cool. So that 2022, you got again EJ, Gabe, and even Nathan MacKinnon. He went through that 48 points. There's a bunch of guys that did. You know what I mean? So again, you can elaborate more on that. But what a moment! 3 cups. 20-something years, 3 cups. Not a lot of teams in the NHL can say that.
And if our listeners are confused, I initially was talking about Darren Helm's Game 6 goal in the St. Louis Blues series of that cup run, but this is more importantly the Game 6 Stanley Cup win game. And to your point, Eric, seeing the reaction, I think it was Landeskog had the issue with the skate blade, right? And he's having trouble getting off the ice. And you just knew, though, even in that moment, the excitement, it was just a matter of the clock running out at that point. The game was all but won. And to see the hug between Landeskog and Eric Johnson on the ice after everything that they've been through together as young players through that point, it really made that such a special cup win for the whole team. And for guys like Cogliano and Darren Helm, who were very much important voices on that team and had important contributions that it really took a village. And I think that is true of both eras of Avalanche hockey that we're talking about. The contributions of everybody helped them to get to that moment. And it was really special, and I'll never forget that night. I would have loved to have them win it here in Colorado on home ice, but I think it was special for them to win it away and just kind of have that moment with just players and family kind of privately to celebrate.
Yeah, and it's funny because fans, like, you watch it, and Avalanche fans, like, having suffered through that 48-point season, and following the team, and media wise, and everybody, right, management, people that work for KSC, you're sitting there, and as you see the clock go down, it's almost surreal, right? Because you're like, oh my God, this is it. And I remember, it's funny because I remember talking to Ray last year about this, and he was telling a story to a bunch of us, and he was saying that, I don't remember, there's like 30 seconds left, and he's still playing, and he's breathing heavy, and there's a face off, and he's like, in his mind, it's like they're up by 2 or whatever the final. I don't remember. Was it 4-1, 3-1? I don't remember. Anyway, I think it's 3-1. I don't remember. What's the difference? They won. But he said he's sitting there, and he's like, he can't breathe. You know what I mean? He can't breathe. And he's like, and all of a sudden Patty was yelling at him, relax, relax. We got in the bag, buddy. Relax. And he goes, I couldn't relax because I was like, A, it was a Stanley Cup, but B, I knew these were the last 20, 30 seconds of my career because I was retiring. I already had decided I was retiring. So he goes, it was absolutely crazy, and you can't breathe. So that's why this 2022, same thing for the fans, the guys that have, suffered through. Jared Bednar, Joel Sakic, Chris, all those guys, having stuck with Jared Bednar, and, you got a 48-point season, it's not everybody that will keep the game. Again, circumstances are a little different the way he came in, but still, they showed some confidence, they showed some faith, and I think the interview on the ice with Jared Bednar after the game was awesome. It was real, it was raw, and it was like thankful, like for the opportunity, and that he was still there, and and again, he's still there. I think he should be there. I love durability in players, and I love, like, when coaches stick around. Again, that's a different pod for coaches that get fired every freaking 6 months, but whatever, that's a different story. But yeah, what a moment for the Avalanche, what a moment for the players that have been there for a while, and what a moment, like you said, for guys like Helm and Cogliano and guys that are older, and it was fun to watch. We can move on to the next one, number 4. Again, you can elaborate more on this one. Having covering the team at that time, same thing. It was that hate trick, Kadri. Obviously, we all know that he's a polarizing figure, and he's, you love on your team and you hate to play against him, and Jordan Binnington don't like him. We know that, and then obviously, all the brouhaha that happened. You can elaborate more on it, but I think it's, obviously it was fitting to get a hat trick, and how funny was that to watch and just kind of shove it up to them, in the right fashion.
This list is hard to make because there's a lot of games just from the 2022 Cup run alone that stood out as really important moments, and there's some recency bias in that. But I think that the Kadri hate trick will go down. I think it's going to age well as a really significant game in Avs history because of the context around it. The 48 hours that lead up to this moment for Kadri, his family, himself, were facing threats and horrible racist comments in retaliation to this petulant incident between Binnington and Kadri. Like, it could have stood on its own as this kind of silly thing, but the way that it stoked the fires of hatred, I don't even want to say in the Blues fan base, this was bringing out the worst of people generally. So I don't even want to pin that on St. Louis Blues fans, but having to have security posted up outside your hotel and escort you to the arena, this was a pretty big deal. And for Kadri to be able to tune out that outside noise and score his first playoff career hat trick in response to it, I think was such a significant moment of change for him as a player too, because he did have a reputation of towing that line, pushing the envelope as a player and pushing it too far. in, past playoff appearances for the Avs. And so he faced the consequences for that in the past and really tried to clean up his act and had done a really great job in this year of doing as much, but was still being penalized even on ice for the player that he was before. And I understand why that happens. He'd earned a reputation with officials and such, but this moment was not Kadri being the dirty player. He really worked hard to shed that part of his reputation and clean up his act and just lead with skill. And I think that scoring a hat trick really captured this moment perfectly. It was obviously a huge moment in the series, too, to elevate them to the Western Conference final and finally slay that second round demon. But it was also just such a huge personal moment for Nazem Kadri, the player.
And you're right, and it is about the second round, like you said, demon, and it was crazy because for a couple of years you just can't get out of it. You feel that, man, am I doing something wrong as a team, or are we ever going to get through it? So yeah, you're right, but it was Kadri took the bull by the horn. It was awesome to watch, and it's almost Hollywood fitting, right? You know what I mean? Like it's almost like you can make a script out of this. It's awesome. I mean, it was awesome. It's not something you see every day. That's why it's on that list today. So. You can go on to, number 5. It's game 82. I believe that's the 2018 season where win and you get in, right? So it was fitting that it was against the St. Louis Blues, right? So game 82 there, number 5. And it was home ice, right? Not home ice, but just happened to be at home. You win, you get in, and you're playing the opponent, and you have to win in regulation too. They had to win in regulation, which was crazy because sometimes that can you're like, oh my God, watch this, we're going to be tied, and then it's not going to work, and we're going to go into whatever overtime or shootout. But you know what? They had been on the run since January. I think Gabe had said it at the end of the year. He was like, man, they felt good about themselves. They come from a long way back, right from that 48-point season, and it was important for them and for Jared Bednar as well, and Nolan Pratt and those guys to feel that they are, a playoff team, and you want to get in the playoffs. You want to see what you can do. So how fun is that? Winner, move on, playing against the team that's obviously fighting it out with you. And the building was electric that night. I was not in it, but I remember watching the game, and you pull for him, and you could tell that it was 5-2 win, right, I believe. And then it was crazy. The building was electric, and it's fun to see those things when you're on home ice. Like I said, in the 0-1 Cup, Game 7, you're at home. It's crazy. A game like that, too, you feel it in the air. It's kind of fun to be a part of something like that. I'm sure the people that were in the Ball Arena or Pepsi Center at the time that night could tell you that it was amazing.
Another important Mackinnon game, and I think your earlier point about this being on the heels of that horrific 48-point season point to the significance of this being the Avs turning the page on that chapter and starting this era of Avalanche hockey that is still competitive to this day with the current core as we know it to some extent. There's pieces that have moved on like Tyson Barrie, but Gerard's involved, McKinnon's involved. It's an important game, and it helped reinstill hope, I think, in the fan base for the direction that this team was headed in. And it finally started to feel pretty good.
And Timmy talked about it yesterday, right? How important it was, for the Berries and those guys to get in there. So it was, again, electric game that night, and pretty awesome to have that as a top 10 game. Again, is it going to make the top 25 in all sports? Maybe not. I don't know, but it's certainly in Avs history. It's a turning point. It's a pivotal point for Avalanche 2.0. So we move on to the game 26 there. Game number 6, which is 22, game 2, right? 2022 Cup, game 2. You must have been there. I got to be honest with you, I was not there. But when you're in the finals and you win games, it's fun, especially on home ice. Not a decisive game, but I think you feel it after that game, and I'll give you the floor there that you're like, oh, my God, we as a team are going to do it. And then, as media or fans, you're like, oh my God, they're going to do it. You know what I mean? Those guys are going to do it. So that's what I kind of remember of that game. And I'm sure you were in the building, so maybe you can do more on elaborating on that game. But that's how I was feeling.
It was sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's like when you open the door and you announce that you're here. It was like the Colorado's way of announcing to the dominant Tampa Bay Lightning, we're here. And I think that's when you had to really, not that you should have ever doubted the Avs on this cup run, because they just look like a team that couldn't be denied. They did still have to beat a Titan in a dynasty era that is Tampa Bay. And so a 7-0 defeat in game 2 after a close win in game 1 sent a really powerful message that the Avs were here and this wasn't going to be an easy path through the final. And I don't think anyone treated it with that lack of seriousness, but I think it really, in talking about how that season after the 48-point season was a turning of the page, this also felt like an announcement to the rest of the league that the Avs were here and they're going to be a problem for a few years to come. I shouldn't say a few, for several years to come.
Yeah, nice way to say it. Nice way to use the words. Like people felt they were a threat for a couple years before, and then people are still feeling they're a threat. Yeah, and you're right. You're bang on. But it was very important to show on the main stage that you could do it, and they certainly delivered that night. God, it would have been nice if they would have won Game 5 at home. I mean, I tell you, I was in the building and I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be so fun to watch it live, because it's fun to watch the cup live. It's fun to watch the handshake lives. I know Enrique's never seen the handshake line, so it would have been a good night for him to see it with the cup, but didn't happen. Um, they win it Game 6, so no big deal. But still, it would have been nice to move on. Yeah, I'm good on ad reads, right? I mean, we can keep going, correct?
Yes, we're good. We can keep rolling.
Sorry, I'm good. You know me, like my inner Rudo is talking right now, so I gotta make sure I'm good. Number 7, you can go to 96. Sorry, number 7, right? Yeah, Claude Lemieux, Draper Claude Lemieux. I got to be honest with you. I got traded to the Avalanche that summer, so I was not present in the building. But you were not alive, Megan. But I'll talk to a lot of guys over the years, and I remember talking to a lot of guys from that edition, because obviously I got there that summer, and the year after they were telling us. I was like, what was it like to? You got to remember, Detroit Red Wings had 100 gazillion points that year. They had the Tampa Bay Lightning, remember, broke their record a few years back. It was that edition of the Red Wings. Like, those guys were machines. They were so good. Detroit was so good. And the Avs had them up 3-2, and this is, Game 6, and at McNichols, and Claude Lemieux hits Chris Draper, right? That incident that started all the rivalry and the fights and the documentaries and all about those years. And then I joined the Avs, and it was so fun. Those years were so fun. Like, it was crazy, the rivalry. It was absolutely ridiculous, the hype of those games. It was so fun to be a part of. But obviously what started was Claude's hit on Draper, and people tend to, I mean, again, we won't talk about it, but a couple games before, Kozlov does hit Footy. And I do believe that's what started the hatred. That's what I think, but people tend to go back to the Claude against, Draper hit there. And it is a memorable game because the Avs are up 3-2 in the series, and they do win that night, even though Claude gets a 5-minute major and they kill it. And the Avalanche end up winning that game and winning the series 4-2. And a lot of people over the years have told me that's the loudest they've heard a building. Good old Big Mac, McNichols Arena was awesome. I loved playing there. It was so fun. It was an old beat-up building, and apparently it was so loud that night. And Uwe Krug told me, he goes, I tell you one thing. We wanted to win so bad because we're like, we're not going back to Detroit. We're not going back to Detroit. You don't know what's going to happen. And they were so good, right? So you're almost like, not that you don't believe in yourself, but you're like, oh my God, we can actually take them down. And we have the opportunity to take them down. And this is where you see Claude gets kicked out, and they end up winning the game. And then he comes back out for the handshake line and is, hockey underwear, and he's shaking hands with the Red Wings, and Dino Ciccarelli shakes his hand, and post game, Ciccarelli is on TV, and he's like, "I can't believe I freaking shook that guy's hand," and it was so crazy. It was such a rivalry that was born, and I think it's fitting for that game to be there because. Again, Avalanche 1.0, a little bit like you were saying there, 2022, like game two. I think people are like, oh my God, the deadly, awful Quebec Nordiques, now the Colorado Avalanche, are for real. They are for real. And they just took down the Gladiators. What are they were? They were such a big mountain, the Red Wings. It was crazy. And then everybody was like, holy cannoli. Avalanche are a good team. You know what I mean? And then obviously the rest is history. So the Claude Lemieux 96 game is, hit on drippers. It's a fitting game for the Avalanche 1.0, becoming what they were. So I don't think you have much more to say about that because you weren't born. So
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah. But it's part of the history. So then we can move on to number 8, right? It's McCarr's first game as an Avalanche, and that I'll talk about it for a minute, then give you the floor. But it's funny because I've told you guys the story before. I was covering the Calgary Flames, right? Part of the scouting staff, and the last 2 weeks of the season, I was following the Avalanche because we felt that we were going to probably match up with the Avalanche, and I remember, obviously right before playoff starts, you talk with the coaching staff. It was Chris Peter, Billy Peters at the time, and I remember talking to Billy and saying, "Okay, this is what the Avs. This is how they do it." Twice the middle of that year. Anyway, I don't remember. No, I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway, this is how they do their power play. This is what it is, and this is all the stuff to expect. And then, obviously the Kel McCarr came in a subject, right? What about this Kel McCarr? Going to be there or not be there? Who is that? Like, again, who is he? And it's like, well, yeah, man. Again, you're probably thinking he's going to run their power play, right? You know what I mean? This is probably what's going to happen. And I said to Billy, I said, I've never seen him play. I've seen a couple, college games on TV, and his head coach, Greg Carvel, was my sentiment in college. I said, I've talked to Greg about him, and he raves about him, saying he's amazing and this guy's a stud. But, how good can he be? Even I said it. Like, how good can he be? I mean, like, he's a college kid that's coming in. Who knows? Nerves might get to him. And I'm not saying that I downplay or Billy Peters downplayed it, but it was brought up. It was talked about that this guy, Kel McCarr, is a good player, he's a special player, but how special is he going to be right away? And I remember being in that building that night in the booth there with the Calgary Flames, and what a shellacking that was. And I just remember walking away, and I was like, boy, oh boy, we're in trouble. You know what I mean? And we never touched the puck the rest of the series. And Kel McCarr was absolutely electric. And he's a Calgary kid playing against his team, his hometown team. So it was awesome. I'm sure you were there that night. But me, that was more on the wrong end of it. So I'd like to erase that game from the list there. We'll leave it there. He's the best player in the world.
It's really special. He wins the Hobie Baker Award in college. His season comes to an end, which is probably disappointing. Gets dropped in the NHL playoffs. And why I like to ask about the path to the NHL for defensemen, especially coming out of college, is because I think it typically takes them a little bit longer. But Cale Makar didn't take that much time. He's an anomaly, and I just don't know that you can ever compare any other player's path to the NHL to his, because he's just so special, and that was evidenced in his NHL debut in the playoffs, scoring a goal. And I think even the play-by-play announcer that was calling that game thought it was Eric Johnson that had scored that goal at first, because it was almost unbelievable that it would be Cale Makar in his debut game. But it was, because he's special, and he's been special since day one in the NHL. And we just haven't really looked back. Like, this was a young kid straight from college playing with the confidence of an everyday NHLer. And that also was so impressive. He was jumping up in the rush, and so much of how Avalanche hockey is played today, I think, runs through Cale Makar and who he is as a player. So it's really special, and I think that he's only begun to collect hardware. Norris, Stanley Cup, Conn Smythe, I think there's more in his future, and so we'll look back on Makar's first game even more fondly in history as he continues to do more in his career.
And I'll never say it again. I'll never say that again. Oh, how good can he be? He's just a college kid. So I'll never say that again. Learn my lesson. What a special player he is. Again, I don't know. Maybe we'll never see another Cale Makar. Who knows? But, wow, that guy's good. Number 9, you got the Forsberg game, which I'm going to give suggestion here to any Avalanche people. The Forsberg game, meaning the Florida Panthers, they're down 5-1. In the third period in South Florida in a regular season. I want to say it's 98 or 99. Google it. I was not there anymore. I just got traded. But Peter Forsberg single-handedly, they win 7-5 in regulation. Patty Waugh gets pulled. Craig Billington has one shot on net, walks away with the win. He's just pushing Snow left to right to left. The puck never left the zone. Google it, Peter Forsberg at Florida. And to give you a little story on this, I know for a fact he was challenged in the locker room after the second period by a guy in the locker room and said, hey, maybe you should get your head out of your ass a little bit, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden it's like, oh. And then he goes and he plays that period. Go watch it. If you're an Avalanche fan, go watch it. It's the most dominant period I've ever seen by an Avalanche player. To this era, to the old era, he just absolutely dominates the period. It is disgusting. It shouldn't be allowed to play in the NHL. That's how good he was. Like it was like, and then he scores or he makes a play and he doesn't even celebrate. He just goes right back to center ice, and then he has that magical third period. Then he goes in the locker room and says to the guy, "Sorry guys, my fault. I wasn't awake the first 2 periods." But that's how good Peter Forsberg was. And for me, it is the most, I'll say it again, dominant period by any Avalanche player in the history of the franchise. It is special what he did that night in the third period, and I don't think it's ever been duplicated.
I'm just glancing at a video compilation of all of the points he scored in 20 minutes in that game, and it's pretty impressive. So I think your recommendation is a good one to look at this.
Oh, absolutely. If you're bored, go watch it. I'm urging everybody. It's amazing. So then we can move on to, obviously, like you said, the Game 6.
I spoiled it. I got our Game 6 mixed up, but this is more appropriately at 10.
It was awesome. I was on my patio. I saw Darren Helm score, and I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna do it. They're gonna win it. You know what I mean? For me, that was the moment of that playoffs. They're getting out of the second round. You got the role player that scores a goal on a weird timing at the end of the game, and you're like, you don't expect it. It's like, what was that? And then they're winning the series. So there you go, spoiler. You can have it. And that was an amazing, amazing moment.
I was at a bachelorette trip in Arizona when it happened, and so I was just looking at my phone for updates during dinner, and every girl at that table, we were at dinner, was losing their minds. Not even all of them hockey fans, but there's just, the excitement was contagious at that point. And just seeing Darren Helm and the 5.6 seconds, it was such an amazing feeling. All the way in Arizona, everybody was an Avalanche fan at that bachelorette weekend.
Yeah, that's, again, between you and me and, all the history of the, almost 30 years now of the Avalanche, it's kind of fun to nitpick 10 games like that. And again, what a great history that the Avalanche have now, and then in the community on the ice and with the alumni group now, and again, Hall of Famers. Fun exercise to pick 10 games. Fun to go down memory lane for the older guys like me a little bit, and then fun for guys, gals like you to talk a little bit about the last few years, which have been so successful. So. That was a fun day. Tomorrow we'll have Evan Liu, I think, will join us, right? So we'll have Evan.
Yes, a guest tomorrow, guys.
Yeah, we'll guest Evan. And I believe Rudo will be back from puppy duty and, buying a new Toyota. Hopefully
he's getting a car.
Getting a new car. And I don't know, do we have Super Chats or no? Or not too sure?
We're
Yes.
okay, Eric. No super chat.
Okay. All right. Good. Just making sure. And then, again, give us a like. Look at all the DNVR great stuff that we have at DNVR Avalanche, or all the DNVRs. Again, we're not biased, but we are biased with DNVR Avalanche. So you sign up at dnvr.com as well if you want to join the takeovers that we're going to have this season. It's already on sale. There's 3 magnificent, awesome game. I'm biased too with the Montreal game. So I am from there. I'm a big Canadiens fan. So again, follow us, give us a like. We always love talking hockey with everyone. Today was a fun exercise, Megan. It was awesome. Yeah, thank you very much.
Happy
And
belated birthday, Eric.
yes,
Everybody go
yesterday.
wish Eric a happy birthday
Yeah,
on
thank
everywhere.
you, thank you.
Twitter, chat.
Yeah, 27 years old. So I'm excited for this 28th year of my existence this year. But anyway, it was awesome. And again, we will see you tomorrow at our regular time. And like I said, we'll have Evan as a guest, and Ruro should be back and moving right along this week. And see if anything happens Avalanche wise. We'll be right on it. So we will see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.
Like the mayor.